Save the male lead by feeding him well. The system entrusted me with the heavy task of conquering the heart of the male lead, a boy born with the ability to read minds, who grew up to be cruel, cold, consumed by resentment, and eccentric. After a brief period of contemplation, I decided to enter this world when the male lead was just 1 year old. From this day forward, I would take on the role of the child's guardian, teaching him about justice, respecting women, living an optimistic and joyful life, and becoming a good person. I casually stated, "Perfect conquest must begin with education." The system was swayed by my reasoning, agreeing that I had a point. And so, on a heavily snowy day, I adopted Ethan, a 1-year-old baby abandoned at the hospital. 6 years later, at the orphanage I founded, the innocent boy asked me, "Director, what does conquest mean?" I gently patted his head. "It means I want you to feel the world's care and love." Ethan's 7-year-old eyes sparkled brightly as he happily spun around. "I love you too, Director." Beside him, those who would later become the male lead's subordinates, partners, rivals, and even his white moonlight first love, gathered around me, vying to say, "I love Director the most." System, the male lead's favorability has reached its maximum. Host's mission is complete. How could this happen? After dying from overwork, I was forced to connect with a system and accept a conquest mission. The system sent me the contents of the original story. I gazed at the handsome yet cold teenager in the document, lost in thought. He was being trampled underfoot, his body covered in injuries, his eyes a soulless gray, indifferent as if he had detached himself from the world. The system rigidly informed me, "After you enter this world, you can bring him home, but currently he's working odd jobs outside, enduring all sorts of humiliation. He might not trust you, so you'll need to warm his heart with love. Additionally, he has a childhood sweetheart, who is also his white moonlight. According to our analysis, after they reunite, misunderstandings will arise between them." I interrupted it. "How old is he? He looks like he's just in his early teens." It paused for a beat. "This is a photo of him at 14. Why does he have to work for a living? At this age, he should be in school," the system replied. "He has no money, so he had to drop out. Compulsory education lasts 9 years. The orphanage should be responsible for his tuition and other expenses." I pointed out the anomaly. "The orphanage he was in doesn't seem to be very well managed." The system seemed flustered by my words. "Is that so?" "It seems the system in this region has many shortcomings." I thought for a moment. "Take me to that world, I have an idea." The system became excited. "So, what time period do you want to choose? When he's 14 and being humiliated by customers? Or when he's 18 and collapses in an alley? Or when he's 23? I replied, "Of course, when he's 1 year old." Ethan was frail from birth, his father unknown, his mother having died during childbirth. His relatives abandoned him at the hospital gate when he was barely a year old. On that cold, heavily snowy winter day, Ethan developed a high fever, losing part of his hearing. But he also possessed the male lead's special ability, reading other people's thoughts. From that day on, his world seemed utterly silent, yet plagued by negative thoughts. I stood before the hospital gate, looking at the sleeping infant in my arms, and said without ceremony, "If you want my help, you should give me some advantages, like money, for instance. Otherwise, the male lead will starve." "Is that really possible?" the system asked, sounding worried for the 13th time after helping me get started. "How about I send you 10 years later?" "That's going too far," I wagged my finger. "I'm 22 now." Helping him at 1 year old is fine, but 18 is illogical, 16 even less so, and 11 is completely out of the question. It seemed to awaken to the light of justice and law, a bit flustered, momentarily speechless. "Let's go," I urged. "There's still a lot to do. For example, I need to find out what conditions are required to take over an orphanage. The philanthropic orphanage where Ethan lived was indeed poorly managed, but that's not a problem. I can help improve the situation." I carefully wrapped the baby in a diaper and held him to the hospital, secretly thinking, "I hope it's not too late. I hope his hearing can still be saved." The system helped me complete the paperwork. I took Ethan for examination and treatment first, then proceeded to take over the seemingly dilapidated philanthropic orphanage. This orphanage had been closed for a long time, with no children or caretakers, only temporarily managed this year. Everything was in disarray. Because my previous work was also related to orphanages, I was very familiar with all these procedures. Plus, I had the system's help. Ethan was an abandoned child. After the hospital handed him over to the police through a series of my actions, he was adopted by me and brought to the philanthropic orphanage, becoming the only child there. Everything perfectly matched the original plot, the only difference being that I was now the director of the orphanage. While caring for Ethan, I also renovated the entire orphanage, gradually improving its facilities. Everything progressed very smoothly. This greatly astonished the system, because Ethan's favorability towards me rapidly soared, reaching 80. I wasn't surprised. For children this age, the person they are closest to is undoubtedly the one who cares for them daily. Although Ethan was too young to understand love, he quickly learned to reach out his arms whenever I wanted to pick him up and would smile innocently at me. Each time this happened, the system would mutter, "How is this possible? How can this be?" So, it is possible after all. I paid no mind to its astonishment, looking up at the renovated orphanage before me, and said with satisfaction, "The results aren't bad. I just wonder if there are any suitable educational facilities nearby. I've looked into the policies in this area. Orphanages have the right to establish their own schools, but clearly, the philanthropic orphanage doesn't meet the conditions yet. I need to work harder." Lacking the ability to interpret, the system decided to remain silent. Thanks to prompt medical attention and my dedicated care, Ethan's health improved greatly. By the age of 3, he could run and play, and he began to babble, calling me director. Little Ethan asked me, "Director, what does my name mean?" I hugged him, explaining that when he was born, it was snowing, and his mother particularly loved cranes. He was too young to fully grasp the meaning of loss and separation, but I didn't want to hide the origin of his name. Ethan only understood part of it. "So my name is the crane that Mama liked. Mama liked me too?" "Yes, that's right." I gently stroked his head. "Mama loved you very much." Hearing this, he brightened and smiled innocently. The day I taught Ethan to write his name, I asked the system, "Systems are classified differently, aren't they?" The system fumbled with my question, thinking carefully. "I'm not sure, but we are all conquest systems." "You guys," I realized something, "do you have other colleagues?" "Yes, but I don't have a name." "So do they all have unique names? Do they name themselves?" The naive system spoke up. "My former friends are named Little CI, Little Scenery, Little Ye, Little She." I asked, "Then why don't you create a name for yourself like them?" The system hesitated for a moment, but my other colleagues said that after they named themselves, they all neglected their duties and went off to do other things. "You can also do other things, for example, run this orphanage with me," I replied. "But at the same time, I'm performing my mission, so that can't be considered neglecting work." "Really?" The system seemed more excited. "I also have the right to name myself." "Ah, yes," I said gently. "What do you want to be called?" "Then, since I'm managing this orphanage with you," it said, "I want my name to be Xiao Fang." I pondered for a bit. Xiao Fang sounds lovely. It was silent for quite a while, probably sharing this joy with its friends. On the day the orphanage officially reopened, I took Ethan to welcome the new children. I had already reviewed their files. Perhaps due to the plot's magnetic pull, Annie, Ethan's childhood sweetheart and future white moonlight, also arrived. Her parents had died in a car accident. She was then brought to the orphanage, and at age 8, she was adopted by a couple and taken abroad. The story didn't delve much into this period, but for Annie to transform from a well-behaved, adorable girl into the classic wicked female antagonist later on, that time abroad must not have been pleasant. I carefully checked and found that the adopting couple was fundamentally unqualified, again a problem with the orphanage's procedures. So, I looked at the timid girl in front of me, sat down, and gently stroked her head. "Good Annie, from now on, this will be your home." The girl stared at me blankly. Perhaps my gaze was sincere enough that even the most sensitive child felt no malice. She carefully extended her small, chubby hand and took my finger. Her pale face was still streaked with tears, but she obediently let me hug her. Receiving a piece of candy from me, she softly smiled for the first time that day, timidly calling me director. Meanwhile, Ethan, a bit tense and worried, led the new little ones on a tour of the orphanage. This was a task I had carefully entrusted to him, and he took it very responsibly. Acting like an older brother, he bustled back and forth among the new children. Seeing him sometimes comforting a friend not to cry, sometimes giving another a piece of candy, and sometimes holding hands, swearing this was surely the best orphanage, I couldn't help but smile. In the afternoon, I put the children down for their nap. Ethan seemed very excited and couldn't sleep, secretly whispering to me, "Director, among the friends today, I like Leo the most. He's super cool, I replied. Oh, really? The name Leo sounds familiar. Looking at the birthmark on the boy named Leo, I finally remembered. Wasn't this Ethan's future archnemesis, the gang boss Leo? I guess I need to step up legal education. Currently, Leo looked very timid, often looking down and speaking little because of the large birthmark on his face. Added to his developmental delay, he had been abandoned by his parents. Abandoning children is a criminal act. Seeing Leo's sad, self-conscious expression, I drew Ethan closer. Perhaps he had read my thoughts, his face on the verge of tears, asking sadly, "Director, Leo's parents don't want him anymore." Ethan's ability to read thoughts was never a secret to me, but he and I had made a pact. It was our secret. I told him seriously, "What your friend's parents did was wrong. They could be punished by law." Ethan only partially understood. "I want to be friends with him." "Then invite him to play in the garden," I replied. "Didn't you tell me last time you wanted to play on the seesaw with him?" Ethan's eyes lit up, then quickly dimmed. "But it's nap time now, isn't it?" "It's okay. Today's an exception." I stroked little Ethan's head. "From now on, we're family with Leo. I want Leo to be happier. Can you help me?" Ethan eagerly responded, "Yes, I can." I opened the garden door and waved, watching two small figures happily run towards the seesaw under the sunlight. I returned to the dormitory, saw all the children with their heads bowed, and couldn't help but smile. "Can't anyone sleep?" The room was silent, only Annie looked up, pointing out the window to the garden, chirping, "I want to play with Director." "Then let's go play in the garden," I said, smiling. "But since it's nap time now, no doing this again next time, okay?" "Yes, ma'am." The children, who had been hesitant, suddenly brightened. They answered me in unison, like a flock of happy sparrows flying towards the garden. I slowly followed the children, chatting with Xiao Fang. "Why is the children's favorability towards you so high, host? I've never seen such fast progress in a conquest mission." "Do you know a story?" I mused about a demon trapped in a bottle. It once promised that whoever freed it would be granted infinite power and wealth. But after many years of being freed, it resented the fisherman who saved it, believing he came too late. I have this story in my data. Love is similar. My voice was calm. Conquest is essentially an exchange. You give love and you receive love. But if they never received love from a young age, what do you think those fake, insincere kinds of love can accomplish? So if I appeared when he was 15 or 16, my position in Ethan's heart certainly couldn't compare to Annie, who grew up with him since childhood. Did the host choose to enter at such a young age to make the conquest easier? Not entirely. I smiled, lifting a child running towards me and stroking her head. "I just want to tell you one thing." "What is it?" "The definition of conquest is too broad," I replied. "This world has countless kinds of love, and teaching them to understand that can certainly be considered a form of conquest. Host, you are truly different from anyone I've ever met. How many people have you met? In my eyes, you're just a child yourself." I picked up the girl and swung her. "Perhaps in your system's evaluation, conquest was once my job, and you chose me for that. So, what was your previous job?" It seemed confused, but weren't you also loved by many people before, host? Really? I hesitated for a moment, then chuckled softly. Previously, I worked in special education. I was nothing more or less than an outsider in the Zhan family. My siblings all had noble goals, either inheriting the company or shining in the arts. Only I plunged into a small county, volunteered to teach for several years, then returned to work as a teacher at a special school, and finally opened an orphanage myself. Most orphans are not healthy children. They often have physical or mental deficiencies. At first, my family members who visited me were often shocked by the injuries on my body. They asked me countless times, "Lynn, are you crazy?" Outsiders found it even harder to understand. The Zhan family children were pampered from a young age, so why was there a Lynn who had no trace of aristocratic demeanor? However, in life, everyone will always have at least one or two moments that profoundly change them. Nevertheless, I don't intend to comment on what is noble or humble, nor do I try to use flowery language to flaunt my transcendence. In reality, I am just an ordinary individual like everyone else, who coincidentally chose this path. Therefore, I didn't care about the doubts or ridicule, only smiled and replied, "I am just like all of you, pursuing what I want." Xiao Fang asked me, "So what completely changed you?" I replied, "Who knows, my childhood memories are faded, but perhaps there was such an event. Actually, I still remember it clearly. I remember my school once organized a charity event. We wore flared dresses and vests to visit a nearby special school to deliver gifts. But that day, we didn't meet any students. The teachers said they were afraid the children would hurt us, so they locked them in the dorms. We placed books and clothes on the desks, took a few photos, and left. I noticed a fairy tale book on a desk with a crooked line written on it. Xiao Zin asked, "What do stars look like? I also want to know if they taste good." In that story, the stars in the sky were all candies. I put the handkerchief down, glancing to my left. At this moment, my mood seemed to have stabilized. Xiao Zin had never seen stars? Why? This book's owner, she had never eaten candy. I looked at my pretty dress, painstakingly dug a piece of candy out of my pocket, and secretly tucked it into the book. Before leaving, I looked back at the dormitory building. I saw a few dirty children crowded by the window, watching us. An indescribable sadness suddenly welled up in my heart. I only brought one piece of candy and could only leave one. Only one child would taste the flavor of the stars. I went through a busy week. The new children brought vitality and joy to this place, but also countless worries. I had to personally handle everything, from the smallest details like choosing the brand of milk for the children to important decisions like recruiting new teachers for the orphanage, all by myself, single-handedly. Fortunately, I had Xiao Fang, my capable assistant, who helped me monitor the children's situation and prevent undesirable incidents. Otherwise, even if I transformed into 3 people, I couldn't oversee everything. Our orphanage wasn't large. I had hired enough staff, a cook, cleaning staff, nurses, doctors, and childcare workers. But the position of a cultural teacher was extremely important. Especially later, when I intended to open a school, I needed to choose a trustworthy person. After several rounds of careful interviews, I finally found the most satisfactory candidate, a girl whose beauty rivaled that of a celebrity. She was very young, with shoulder-length short hair, bright red lips, a gentle personality, and a charming beauty mark at the corner of her eye. I actually sensed that her background was certainly not ordinary. From her way of speaking and demeanor, one could guess she had been raised in a well-to-do family from a young age. However, her skin was tanned and her cheeks flushed from the Highland sun. "I'm Anya," the girl with eyes sparkling like stars introduced herself. "Hello, Director Lin." I shook her hand, welcoming her. "Hello, Anya." Anya's arrival gave me more time to focus on the children's education. Orphanages with resources often opened their own schools, while those without enough funds usually sent children to external schools. Considering the unique characteristics of some children, I decided to divide the class by proficiency to suit each child's learning ability. After completing the necessary procedures, Anya and I recruited a new team of teachers and officially began teaching subjects at the orphanage. Since the number of children in the orphanage was not large, we opened only one class and the children were free to choose its name. Budding Sprouts was ultimately the name they liked best. And so, the first class of the philanthropic orphanage, the Budding Sprouts class, was officially established. With my existing experience, plus Anya's thorough preparation, the implementation of the curriculum went very smoothly. In fact, at the stage of children's cognitive development, nurturing character and building habits are more important than imparting knowledge. I organized a storytelling class and told the children a story every day. In the world of fairy tales, after the rain comes sunshine, villains will surely pay for their crimes. Princesses will definitely meet their princes, and the ugly duckling will eventually transform into a splendid swan. Small animals that are helped will return to repay the kindness. Of course, life isn't always rosy like a fairy tale. Perhaps when they grow up, they will realize that reality is far different from imagination, but I still hope they believe in magical stories. Additionally, after storytelling time, Anya would come to guide the children on safety education. One should not intend to harm others, but always be on guard. I could teach them how to treat everyone well, but someone also needed to tell them that not everyone is kind, and they needed to be vigilant and know how to protect themselves. I chose Ethan to be the class monitor of the Budding Sprouts class, and from then on, he developed a sense of responsibility, always striving for the class's harmony. The little class monitor was usually full of enthusiasm, but sometimes he also felt down, like today. "Director, Leo cried today," he said glumly, hugging me tightly. I heard him ask why his parents didn't love him. Leo had been much happier since coming to the orphanage, but sometimes he would still cry silently at night. Ethan didn't know how to help his friend relieve this sadness, so he could only ask for my advice. According to the stories I told, his mother loved him very much, so Ethan couldn't understand why Leo's parents abandoned their child. I gently stroked Ethan's hair and said, "Little Ethan, everyone in the world is different, and sadly, some parents don't know how to love their children." Ethan pouted. "Then why did they have him?" "There are countless reasons we may never know, but the important thing I want you to understand is that Leo's parents abandoning him was wrong," I continued. "There are so many children in this world abandoned by their parents. Leo is fortunate to have friends who care, but many other little ones don't even have anyone by their side." Ethan's eyes widened in surprise. "Really?" "Yes, that's right," I suggested. "When you two are older, you and Leo can protect other children in similar situations together." Ethan listened intently, then suddenly stood up and ran outside. "I'm going to tell Leo. Goodbye, director." I smiled and replied, "Go on, little Ethan." In the original story, Leo was a highly protective person, and most of his subordinates were homeless wanderers, many of them orphans. I didn't think that was just a coincidence. Even in the picture provided by the plot, the man with the birthmark had a scary appearance and cold eyes, seemingly devoid of emotion. But perhaps during his childhood, he too wished for someone to protect him. People often say that adult actions often stem from wanting to fulfill childhood deprivations. I mused about this. This time, I must prevent Leo from becoming a gang boss. In the first autumn after the class was established, I announced important news. "Tomorrow, the entire orphanage will have no classes. Instead, we'll go on a picnic together." Previously, for safety and easier management, the children rarely had the chance to go out, let alone on group outings. The picnic location was decided through democratic voting, and ultimately, the zoo was the chosen option. I had also contacted many other places like science museums, and botanical gardens, but finally realized that only the Nam Than Zoo in the neighboring city was the most suitable. I heard that because the orphanage was visiting, the zoo director was extremely generous, waiving admission fees, and even agreeing to cover lunch on the premises. We only needed to pay for transportation. I investigated further and found that Nam Than Zoo was quite famous for its excellent environment and adorable animals. It had even collaborated with a large entertainment company to film a highly successful reality show, which was still popular today. The director of Nam Than Zoo was also well known, partly for his handsome appearance, and partly for his dedication to public service activities, protecting ecological environments and animals. Out of curiosity, Xiao Feng and I looked up pictures of this director together. He had a face that was too young and too handsome. Xiao Feng suddenly exclaimed, "I remember now," I asked. "Remember what?" Xiao Feng replied. "Before, I heard my friends say that the original colleagues who named themselves weren't really systems, nor were they as intelligent as us. In short, there was one named Little Spirit. Could actually be considered a form of consciousness, capable of communicating with everything. Later, it chose a host from the Gui family. This Gui family possessed the ability to talk to animals and also pledged to Little Spirit that they would always protect the green forests and all creatures. That was the oath between them." I looked at the director's name. "So, he is an heir of the Gui family?" Xiao Feng seemed very excited. "Found a colleague," I smiled. "You'll meet many more colleagues later." My contact person from Nam Than Zoo was a young girl named Wendy. True to her name, her voice was warm, patient, and gentle. "Director Lin, please rest assured. That day, our zoo will reduce the number of tickets sold and also arrange staff to accompany and guide you." Xiao Feng, she also has Little Spirit's presence on her. No, wait, why does she also have Little CI's data? Who is Little CI? Before I could ask, Xiao Feng mumbled to itself and disappeared. I guessed it was probably contacting its friends. Nevertheless, if it involved this group of adorable systems, it was enough to prove that Nam Than Zoo was indeed a perfect choice. I texted Wendy back. "Then we'll trouble you all." Wendy sent a smiley face emoji. "Not at all." The excursion made every child in the orphanage incredibly excited. Every day they chattered about the animals they wished to see. Anya was still worried. She repeatedly reminded them about safety precautions and meticulously designed budding sprouts, handkerchiefs, and picnic flags for each child. The flags would be attached to the children's small bags. The handkerchiefs were a fresh, vibrant green, tied into butterfly bows on their wrists. The handkerchiefs had the teacher's contact numbers printed on them, in case any child got lost and couldn't find their way back. I divided the more than 20 children into 4 teams. The team leaders were elected by the children themselves, and each team had its own flag, responsible for ensuring no team member was left behind. It was their first time traveling far, and the team leaders all looked nervous, promising me they would definitely take care of everyone, both anticipating and anxious. I rented a large bus, and with the children's cheerful chatter, we set off at dawn. Nam Than Zoo truly lived up to its name, brimming with greenery and vitality. Wendy was a pretty young woman with a delicate face and innocent doe eyes, looking very youthful. She wore a uniform and greeted us in a clear voice. "Hello, teachers and children. I'm Wenyazai, your guide today." Anya seemed to suddenly remember something and whispered into my ear, "Director, I once saw her on TV. She participated in a very famous show back then." After greeting Wendy, out of curiosity, I searched for her videos online. The first thing that caught my attention was a shocking headline: "Watch the brave girl tame a fierce tiger with her bare hands." "Who? Little Wen?" My expression turned to surprise. Wendy, with her gentle and lovely appearance like a younger sister, led us into the viewing area, then naturally greeted the tiger beside her. "Fifi," she said to the large tiger, which was snarling. "Back up a bit, don't scare the little ones." To my surprise, the tiger seemed to understand her words, obediently stepping back a few paces and sitting down. "Wow!" After a moment of silence, the children all cheered excitedly. "Sister Wendy is so amazing." Annie timidly took a step back, her sparkling eyes looking up at me, tugging at my clothes. "Director, the big tiger just roared twice. Does it really want to come out and play with us?" Ethan, a naturally active and curious boy, asked Wendy, "Sister Wendy, what is Fifi saying?" Wendy's face suddenly became flustered, but she tried to keep a smile on her lips. "It says it's hungry." "Huh, didn't it eat breakfast?" "It did," Wendy rubbed her forehead, "but it's still hungry." Ethan looked bewildered. "How can it be hungry again?" Leo commented. "It really eats a lot." After finishing the tiger exhibit, we continued to see the crane, monkey, and bird exhibits. Lunch was prepared by Nam Than Zoo. They had already laid out picnic mats and snacks on the grass next to the aquarium, with Swan Lake nearby. The children enjoyed watching the swans while eating lunch. Everyone was very happy. After eating and tidying up the trash, the children were still reluctant to leave, so they asked to enter the aquarium. With my permission, we had the opportunity for close contact with dolphins and beluga whales. Ethan's eyes sparkled. "Director, the dolphins are so cute." Annie also cheered with delight. "It's touching my hand." Leo quietly stood there, gazing at the beluga whale under the water. The whale, named Little Whitey, obediently swam closer, its mouth naturally curved as if always smiling. Leo watched this smiling angel, hesitated a bit, then extended his hand. Little Whitey gently rubbed its nose against his hand through the glass. The boy, usually so reserved as if he had just received a priceless gift, his mouth slightly turned up, lips pressed tightly for a long time, finally couldn't help but smile. Little Whitey swam a few circles around the glass, tilting its head. Leo mimicked, tilting his head with it. I watched the scene of one person and one fish happily playing, and smiled. "Director, it's wonderful," Anya stood beside me, softly saying. "I've never seen them so happy. Staying in the orphanage all the time isn't the best thing for them." I replied, "When they're a bit older, they should go out to school." But Anya seemed a little worried. "No need to worry," I said calmly. "We can't prevent all maliciousness that might harm them, but there are other measures. Scars only hurt when we pay attention to them. If we don't care, we'll become stronger." The trip to the zoo was a complete success. The children returned to the orphanage without needing any reminders, voluntarily completing their weekly diary entries. Even during drawing class, they all unanimously drew animals from the zoo. Noticing the children's genuine fascination with the zoo, I decided to download the reality show about Nam Than Zoo to show them every weekend. This naturally became their favorite activity, so much so that sometimes they wouldn't even care about snacks, but would obediently line up to watch in the common room on holidays. When winter arrived, Anya and I bought new warm clothes for the children. Anya asked, "Director, after this year's assessment is done, will we have new children next year?" "Not only that, our orphanage will officially open for adoptions next year." I breathed a sigh of relief. "This needs to be done slowly. The screening of adoptive families must be done carefully." Anya nodded in agreement. The the philanthropic orphanage wasn't large. Even if we took in more children, it would probably only be about a dozen. But it's okay. In a few years, after I secure more funding, we can expand. Rice must be chewed slowly and roads must be walked carefully. Want to eat hot pot? I asked as we passed a fragrant hot pot restaurant. Anya was a bit surprised. But I think we should go back now. Tomorrow, let's treat the children to mini hot pots for dinner. I winked at her. Good food should be shared. Anya looked at me, her expression suddenly softening. She curved her eyes and smiled. Director, sometimes I feel like you're very similar to someone I once knew. There are some similarities but also differences. She clasped her hands together, gently blowing on them. When I first met you, I was stunned for a moment. I remember that person, don't I? I said. You can visit that person during the new year. I miss her a little, Anya pouted. But I wouldn't dare say this to her. I guessed something. Is she your relative? She's my older sister, she replied. Like you, she's also a teacher. I was a little surprised, but not overly so. Everyone's life always has one or two events or someone that completely changes them. New Year's was approaching. On New Year's Eve, North City had a light snowfall. I organized for the children to build snowmen and have a snowball fight together. Everyone was happy, except Ethan, who sat quietly on the steps, chin in hand, looking up at the sky. Dressed in his three-piece warm outfit, the boy took off his soft, furry gloves to catch the falling snowflakes. I vaguely felt the flow of his thoughts. I told him that the day he was born was also a snowy day, and it was the first time he saw his mother. Perhaps the boy thought that each snowfall was when his mother returned to visit. However, before he had sat for long, Leo and Annie each took a hand and pulled him away. Little Ethan, come quick and draw in the snow. Leo and I are done drawing, we just need you. Annie's face was flushed from the cold, looking very excited. I drew a fawn, Leo drew a whale. What are you going to draw? Ethan sat down and began his creation. 10 minutes later, Annie asked doubtfully, What are you drawing? A silkworm? It looks more like a hen. Leo commented after observing for a while. Ethan, who usually appeared calm, immediately widened his eyes. No, this is a red-crowned crane. A crane. The children dragged me over to judge, and I tried to suppress a laugh, saying, It is indeed a crane. Ethan secretly thought, the director must be thinking my painting looks like a tangled mess of yarn with 2 chopsticks stuck in it. I was startled. Oh dear, I've been found out. All right, I stroked Ethan's head. Will you let director draw a crane for you? Really? The boy's dejected face suddenly brightened. After the snow play ended, I told the children to go inside and wash their hands and faces with warm water to avoid catching a cold. New Year's at the orphanage was anything but desolate. Many people came to visit us. Anya also didn't go home. When asked, she simply said that this was her first New Year at the philanthropic orphanage, and she wanted to be with the children. We pasted couplets together, watched the New Year's program, played games, and prayed together. I prepared a red envelope for each child, containing a gift and good wishes. At the same time, I also received 27 slips of paper with their individual wishes. Since the children were young, at 9:00 p.m., I reminded them to go to bed and then returned to my office to continue working. As New Year's Eve approached, my shoulders and neck felt a bit tired. I was about to give myself a massage when a warm, gentle current of energy spread, soothing the aches and dispelling my fatigue. I'm staying, Xiao Fang host. It replied, It's only 5 minutes until New Year's. I responded. Time flies so fast. I put down my pen, quietly watched the snow falling outside the window, then stood up and walked to the children's dormitory, gently tucking each one in. Happy New Year, Lin. Happy New Year, Xiao Fang. When Ethan, Annie, and Leo turned 7, I took them to the elementary school near the orphanage. In the past 2 years, the orphanage had expanded once, taking in more children, and some had been adopted. The 3 oldest were still Ethan, Annie, and Leo. Ethan and Annie were very well liked. Not a few families expressed a desire to adopt the 2, many of them financially well off, but neither wanted to leave. Ethan said, I'm still the class monitor of the Budding Sprouts class. I can't leave. Annie also said, If I leave, what will happen to Leo and little Ethan? On their first day of school, when the 3 children came home, I subtly noticed that Annie and Ethan looked different. In contrast, Leo was very calm and well-behaved. He greeted me, Director. Seeing me waiting at the school gate, Ethan and Annie were a little surprised, then quickly ran over. Director, why are you here? I realized they were trying to hide their emotions, so I didn't ask further. You're still young. If I have time, I'll certainly pick you up. Director is the best. Annie hugged my arm. Do we have Coca-Cola chicken wings today? I held her small hand. That's always served on the first day of school. How could it be missing today? Annie clutched her backpack strap, cheering joyfully. She spread her arms and hugged me tightly. Ethan and Leo trailed behind, their eyes full of anticipation as they looked at me. And sweet and sour pork ribs and steamed fish with soy sauce, I said, stroking the two boys' heads with my free hand. How could the dishes you two like be missing? Leo was more reserved, just smiling faintly, while Ethan looked up and gave me a radiant smile. The boy's bright expression was far different from the image in my memory. I paused for a beat, then smiled happily. No matter what, the boy is getting better. That was my original goal. In the evening, after finishing everything, I was considering asking Leo if anything had happened to him today when I stepped out of my office and heard noises coming from the back garden. It's nothing, really. I walked towards the garden and saw the three children sitting in a row by the slide. Annie and Ethan looked sad, their heads bowed, while only Leo was comforting his two friends. Don't worry. But everyone was saying bad things about you, Annie said indignantly. I heard everything. No one in our orphanage says bad things about you, Ethan added. Everyone thinks the birthmark on your face is really cool. Because, Leo seemed flustered. Because why? Annie asked. Ethan looked up. Calm down, just say it. Little Ethan, you told me yourself. Director also told you that everyone is different. Leo was silent for a while, then covered his small face and said seriously, some mothers don't love their children, but some mothers love their children with all their hearts. So some friends think the birthmark on my face is super cool, but some friends think it's ugly and scary. That's how it is in general. Annie spoke up. I'm afraid you'll be sad, afraid you'll cry secretly by yourself. Leo immediately shook his head and replied, I won't cry anymore. Oh, do you guys remember? Last winter, Director took us to paint. Ethan asked, a little surprised, you mean the time we all smeared paint on our faces? Director said we could draw princesses, princes, knights, little devils, heroes. Then she drew a mask for me and said I was a masked knight now. That's right, that day everyone liked you so much, everyone wanted to play with you, Annie added. Leo, you looked super cool that day, but I understand what Director wanted to tell me, that it's okay. Leo continued, at first I thought I was very ugly, but Director said I was the coolest child, and from then on I didn't think I was ugly anymore. Because Leo was the oldest, this conversation seemed a bit difficult for Annie and Ethan to fully grasp. So it's okay, no matter what other friends say, it's okay, Leo said, looking around. Besides, I have you guys and you'll stick up for me. Director is the person I love most, and then it's you guys. You're second, me too. Ah, me too, I like Director the most, then you guys. Standing behind the wall, I listened to their innocent, pure words and couldn't help but be lost in thought, then smiled. It wasn't until the three children huddled together, promising to be good friends forever, that I softly cleared my throat and walked into the garden. Director? Caught sneaking out by me, all three children jumped up, obediently bowing their heads. But I didn't scold them, I just led them back to their dormitory. Before sending them into their room, I squatted down and earnestly reminded them, no matter what happens, you can always tell me. You can try to solve it yourselves, but if you can't, Director will definitely help you. Seeing that I didn't scold them for not sleeping and instead sneaking out to play in the garden, Ethan's tense expression relaxed, and he was the first to reply, yes, ma'am. Lin, the male lead's favorability is full, Xiao Fang suddenly exclaimed excitedly. Mission complete. Just then, Ethan softly asked, Director, what does conquest mean? I froze, almost forgetting that little Ethan had the ability to read minds. One day, that child would understand my purpose in approaching him. He would also soon realize that I was entrusted with a conquest mission from the very beginning. But it's okay, truly, it's okay. My gaze softened. My intention is that I hope you can feel the warmth and love from the world around you. I want you to know the myriad forms of love in this life, something that orphans like you always crave. I want to convey that spring always comes, that children abandoned in a forgotten corner of the world also deserve to enjoy the sunshine, the cool rain, and the gentle breezes. There will be birds chirping by your window. You will find true happiness and a bright future. Spring sends messages through me to tell you magical fairy tales. Little Ethan, I wish for you to grow up healthy and safe. This has nothing to do with any conquest mission. It's simply because you are like all the other children I've cared for. I see the sparkling stars in your eyes. This time, I don't just want to give you a piece of candy. I want to become the one who creates those sweet candies. One day, I hope children like you will taste the full flavor of the stars. Ethan seemed to understand and yet not, but still wrapped his arms around me. I love you too, Director. I gently stroked his head. It's okay because you have felt the meaning of love. You understand that this world is vast with countless emotions, and no one has the right to trample on any kind of feeling. Annie and Leo also hugged me tightly. We love Director too. Our voices spread throughout the dormitory. In the darkness, small eyes slowly opened. As Anya prepared to leave, a small hand tugged at her. I like Director, the little girl's tiny voice chirped, but I also like Ms. Anya. I'm fond of both Director and Ms. Anya. I love so many people. There's Auntie Liu who cooks and Uncle Tran at the gate too. I also like Sister Wendy who visits us every month, and Sister Zio Yu who gave us clothes last time. After much effort to soothe the children, Anya found herself still clung to by them. She looked towards the figure being tightly hugged by the door, smiling with a mix of helplessness and affection. Finally coaxing the boisterous children who were expressing their affection to sleep, Anya and I closed the dormitory door. Outside, the bright moonlight shone everywhere, clear as jade. Another year was coming to an end. Almost every winter in North City brought snow. I leaned by the window, watching the children happily playing in the snow. This year, they had a new game, observing the shapes of snowflakes with their science teacher. Anya gently approached me. My leave request has been approved, go home. Before I could even lift my head, I said, Anya, it's been a long time since you visited home. No need, Anya shook her head, her eyes shining with joy. Director, on the second day of the Lunar New Year, my sister will bring her students to visit us. She said they'll volunteer at our orphanage. Students? I was a little surprised. How old are they? They are my sister's first batch of students, all graduated now. Anya curved her lips into a smile. Director, don't worry, everything is according to procedure. Moreover, my sister is very kind. Anya excitedly told me about her sister. I smiled, listened, and nodded. It seems our orphanage will be lively again this year. On New Year's Eve, I still put the children to bed as usual, then sat alone in my office. Zio Fang silently kept me company, and I treated it like an old friend, casually asking questions. Zio Fang, when will you leave? Since signing the contract, it had told me that if I completed the mission, it would have to find another host. Its system also had quotas. Zio Fang had been very excited when it discovered my progress was as fast as wind. Although the reason was unclear, after Ethan's affection for me reached its absolute peak, Zio Fang was only briefly happy, then seemed to forget about leaving, staying by my side until now. However, this time, Zio Fang was different. It no longer remained silent or delayed with a later, but gently landed on my hand. It was very rare for it to appear before me in this form, a soft sphere of light emitting a faint glow. Lin. Zio Fang, usually so taciturn, stammered for a long time, finally uttering a complete sentence. I don't want to leave anymore. I was somewhat surprised, but not overly so. Why? Because I have a name, it replied. My name is Zio Fang, and I want to build the philanthropic orphanage with you into the best place it can be. I was silent for a long time. It seemed a little uneasy. Don't you want that, or don't you want me by your side? Of course not. I quickly responded. It's just so hard to describe my feelings, I can't even describe it right now. Its tone sounded very happy. It seems I'm like my other friends, I have something to do, I have a name, and I have the best host. Everyone is happy for me. I'm happy for you too. I gently stroked the small sphere of light in my hand. If that's what you want, then let's continue to work hard together this new year. Outside the window, the snow was falling heavily, but inside the room, it was warm like spring. I habitually left my office to tuck the sleeping children in, but as soon as I opened the door, I froze. Hanging right by the office door was a glass jar decorated with star-shaped lights, filled with small cards. I reached out and took the jar down. On the largest card was my familiar handwriting. Some words were even written phonetically, but each stroke was incredibly careful. Director, this idea was truly thought up by all the children in the Budding Sprouts class together. But your door is too high, so we could only ask Ms. Anya to help us hang it up. We noticed that Director really likes stars. Leo said Director often looks up at the sky. Annie said you're looking at the moon, but I think you're looking at the stars. There are no moon-shaped lights, only star-shaped lights. But Annie said she already drew the moon for you. Director organizes a birthday for each of us every year, but we don't know when Director's birthday is, so we asked Ms. Anya and found out Director's birthday is when spring arrives. but we have to go to sleep now, so we can't celebrate Director's birthday tonight. We are all good children, very obedient. Director, Happy New Year, happy birthday. We all wrote secret messages. You have to keep them and read them by yourself. From all the children of the Budding Sprouts class, Ethan, Annie, Leo, Ha-Lin. Each child's signature was carefully written on the card. No one was missing, no one was extra. Director once told me that the day I met my mother was a snowy day, a cold winter day. I don't remember the exact day I met Director, but in my heart, that day was like spring. Spring is when all things are reborn, as beautiful as fairy tales. And that's also the season I have Director by my side. I want to send Director this first letter of spring, because the person I love most is Director. Ethan. Fireworks erupted from somewhere. The sky suddenly lit up with splendid bursts of fireworks. Happy New Year. I hugged the jar of paper stars tightly, read the letter written in the middle of spring, and whispered. Xiao Feng once asked me what would happen if Ethan one day discovered the truth that I came to conquer him. At that time, I only thought and replied that it would be okay. Just as I had once told Ethan, everything will be all right. Love makes no distinction between noble and humble. What matters is sincerity. There are countless kinds of love in the world. There is obligation, there is willingness, there is falsehood, there is sincerity, there is concealment, there is expression, there is acceptance, and there is also love that knows its beginning was not honest, but its end surrendered the entire heart.